Committee. Got it. Okay, and Terry will be muting everyone. So if you need to speak, unmute yourself,
I'm doing that right now.
but leave me.
I can't, when I mute everybody, I'll unmute you. I got you. Wait a minute. Let me unmute you.
I got it. Okay.
Thanks.
Okay, so feel free to put questions in the chat, which is a good way to do it, and we'll answer them. We'll get to them when we can. We will be recording the session. So I want to introduce our speakers today. We're going to have about 45 minutes hearing from the speakers, 3 speakers, and then we'll have time for questions. So we've heard feedback from members that you would like to hear more in these education programs about the grantees that we fund. So tonight you'll hear about 2 of our grantees, both under the umbrella of Spiritus Christi Prison Outreach. So the Women's Empowerment Program and the Hagen Grant represent a continuum of support and services for formerly incarcerated women as they move from Jennifer House to the Spiritus Christi Apartments. And you may recall that the Hagen Grant was a strategic grant of the Giving Circle, providing $100,000 over a 3-year period. And we are currently in year 3 of that grant.
Also, Betsy has a new address.
Someone needs to be muted. Okay, thanks. So we'll be hearing from 3 speakers. So first I want to introduce Elizabeth Martinez, who's the Operations Administrator at Spiritus Christi Prison Outreach. She works with funding partners to help implement strategic changes in this rapidly changing field of re-entry from prison and housing. She holds 2 masters, one in cultural foundations and one in social work. So welcome, Elizabeth. Second, we'll hear from Lisa Boschini. I hope I pronounced that right. She's the director of Jennifer House. Only 5 years ago, Lisa was steeped in addiction and came to Jennifer House from prison herself, homeless and alienated from her children. Now, just 5 years later, she's reunited with family. She's in an associate's program for human services, and she's getting credentialed as an alcoholism and substance abuse counselor. She bought her first house last year. She's integrating updated evidence-based practices at Jennifer House, including trauma-informed care and person-centered practice. And then finally, we'll hear from Stephanie Dunn, who is the vocational case manager for the Hagen Grant. So she'll tie it all together for us by giving us an overview of the job training and placement at the end of this comprehensive continuum of care at Spiritus Christi Prison Outreach. So thank you all for joining us, and I want to turn it over to Elizabeth.
Hi, everybody. Thank you so much for having me. My name is Elizabeth Martinez. So I'm a social worker by trade, and I'm what's kind of referred to as a macro social worker. So what that means is
we lost the sound.
You got muted.
Oh, we're back. So yeah, I'm what's called a macro social worker, which basically means that rather than direct service, I do more of the big picture things. So looking at systems of care, community collaborations, what's going on in the community as a whole, policy, and that sort of thing. So because that's the perspective that I bring, today I'm going to talk to you about re-entry in general and the system of care that Spiritus Christi Prison Outreach provides to all of our clients. And then what we'll do is it'll go on to Lisa and Stephanie, who will talk more on the micro level of human services. And they'll talk about Jennifer House, the Women's Empowerment Program, and the Vocational Case Program. So I hope that that's a helpful format for everybody to kind of get a sense of what we're doing at the agency as a whole and what the Women's Empowerment Program is doing. So I'm going to go ahead and dive in. And if you have any questions, I think for my train of thought, it would be most helpful if we maybe put them in the chat or hold them until the end. And then I'd be happy to answer questions that I'm able to. I'm not omniscient, so we'll see what I can do. So the first thing I want to talk about is reentry in general. So the incarceration system in the US is very large. We imprison a lot of people. Imprisonment of women is actually on the rise. And interestingly, reentry is not a formal part of the carceral system, meaning what happens after somebody is incarcerated is, it's hard to find data on because it's not formally tracked. And if you try to do research on reentry, it's hard to find information. That's why it's really important that we practice a peer model at Spiritus Christi Prison Outreach. So what that means is we have lived experience experts working directly with clients, because without that, we have nothing. If somebody is trying to provide services and they don't understand the options of reentry because they've never gone through it themselves, it's really hard to be a provider. So somebody who's in the prison system, when they're reentering the community, they're given some money and the clothes that they went in with and are basically told good luck out there. There are programs that exist, but they're kind of all over the place. So it really varies from person to person. So that's a need that we're filling. And we're kind of a trailblazer in the way that we do it. So I'm going to talk about a couple of the things that affect this population and what the gaps that we're filling as far as that service. So in Monroe County, the second leading cause of homelessness is being released from an institution without a plan for housing. So somebody who's in inpatient care, or they're in a residential setting, or they're incarcerated, that's the second leading cause of homelessness. The first leading cause of homelessness in Monroe County is actually a person who's living with others and is asked to leave. So very often that might involve somebody who is struggling with addiction and their family says, you have to leave, you can't live here anymore. So they're homeless. So what do you think happens? Somebody probably is going to turn to what they need to do to survive. They're going to end up incarcerated. Then they're incarcerated, then they're in an institution, and then they're faced with the second leading cause of homelessness. So there's a lot of barriers there, especially if somebody is struggling with addiction specifically. You might have also noticed that we use the term justice involved. It used to be that you would say somebody was an ex-offender or a felon. There's been a shift in the language there where we try to practice person first language. So a person is not an ex-offender, a person is a person. So we use the phrase, we serve individuals who are justice involved and homeless. They're a person. So that's why we say justice involved. Another reason we say justice involved is because the criminal justice system is changing. All of the people that we serve may not necessarily have actually been imprisoned or in jail. They might be coming from other avenues.
Just make it for me.
Which includes, oops, there's somebody unmuted. Oh, there we go. What that means is there are court diversion programs. So there's human trafficking court, there's mental health court, there's drug court. And these are courts that exist to divert people from the incarceration system, recognizing that crimes aren't necessarily caused by someone being a quote unquote bad person, which was the narrative that was told for a long time. So if somebody's struggling with addiction, let's get them into treatment. So we might serve people like that as well. We also will serve people who are human trafficking victims. So we get that as well in our population. So justice involved is kind of an umbrella term. It's not necessarily always somebody who's been in jail or prison, or maybe was briefly, or even was in the past, not necessarily right before they're joining us at our agency. Let's see, I have a list in front of me. I have so much to share. So something that matters to us is evidence-based practice. Inadvertently, we practice evidence-based practice in a lot of ways. And what I say inadvertently because of our values and the way that we approach things. There's research coming out that kind of supports what we've been doing already and helping us change directions. So it's guiding our sales in a different way. So this is a term some people may have heard of. For example, the social determinants of health. So the social determinants of health are kind of exactly what they sound like. People's health isn't just whether or not they're going to the doctor once a year for a checkup. So if a doctor has a person in front of them who comes from a home with lead paint in it, or they come from a neighborhood with a corner store but no quality produce, their housing is in shambles, or they're homeless. These are determinants of a person's health in the long term. So our suite of programs addresses the different variables in determining somebody's lifelong health and literally their life expectancy. So that's housing, education, work, income, family connections, community, the neighborhood somebody lives in. We're addressing all of these things through our suite of programs. Our suite of programs includes Women's Empowerment, which is a unique program that we have because women face unique needs in comparison to men, which we'll talk a little bit more about. We also have the Family Reunification Program, which is important because that's a huge variable when predicting whether somebody will go back to the incarceration system is family connectedness. We also have the New Beginnings Program, which goes beyond that transitional housing period and continues on into apartment living. And then we have, of course, Stephanie's program. So that's addressing vocation, education, and those things that economically empower an individual. Other evidence-based practice that we're implementing right now, we're implementing trauma-informed care, which is one of those hot button terms right now. Everybody's talking about it. Trauma-informed care is recognizing that an individual may have experienced trauma. The population that we serve has definitely experienced trauma. Being involved in the carceral system in and of itself is traumatic, but there's other determinants, and the likelihood that they've experienced other traumas is very high. So with trauma-informed care, what you're doing is making sure that you're providing services that feel safe and that do not re-traumatize an individual, and you're recognizing the signs of trauma. So for example, if somebody is yelling because they're mad, rather than kick them out, we're saying this person is having a trauma response, and as long as everybody's safe, we're going to work through the volume of their voice, and we're going to get past that. We're going to let them have their emotions and recognize that as a trauma response, because this person doesn't trust institutions. They've been failed by the system. Other human services professionals, they haven't trusted them. So their anger is justified, and we're going to build trust with them. The last piece of evidence-based practice that we're implementing is person-centered care. This shift in human services and social work is changing the narrative as far as helping a person come up with their goals. So prior to person-centered care, what might have happened is a client would come to a provider and the provider would say, okay, you need to do X, Y, and Z, and that's how you're going to be a better person, and that's how you're going to succeed in this world. In person-centered care, you're asking the person, what are your goals? These are the things we can provide to you. Are we going to match up here? What do you need from me? You're asking the person what their goals are rather than projecting onto them what you think that they need. This is a very powerful approach to practice because you'll see better outcomes, because you'll see that people want change more often than not. They want change, and you're giving them power and helping them practice their free will and giving them a sense of, I can do this. I'm going to touch on two more things. The first is the unique needs facing women specifically in the carceral system. So I'm going to read an excerpt from something that I wrote, actually. So women, in comparison to men, have unique circumstances that affect incarceration and recidivism rates. Justice-involved women face fewer resources along the continuum, have different pathways to incarceration, have distinct histories, including trauma, substance use, and victimization, and have exceptional demands regarding children and family because they are more often primary caregivers before and after incarceration. Women in general, not just in incarceration, but women in general have less education and fewer job skills. And women are more likely to report one or more medical problems than men. That is why the women that we serve require economic empowerment, housing, gender-specific trauma-informed care, and family reunification. The last thing I'm going to go over before we get to questions is a person's journey through our agency, because I feel that that can be a little bit confusing. So I'm just going to do it from the perspective of one individual. Somebody's in jail. They hear about the prison outreach, which Lisa and Stephanie can talk more about how that happens. They hear about the prison outreach. They're released from jail. That day, they're picked up by somebody from the prison outreach, and they're brought to either Jennifer House for Women or Nielsen House for Men. Those houses are what's called transitional housing. So a person on average lives in that kind of housing that we provide for about 6 to 9 months. That's an average. And while they're there, again, Lisa and Stephanie will go over this a little bit more. There's a certain type of treatment that they're going through. After about 6 to 9 months, this is where person-centered care comes in. If and when they're ready, not because it's mandated, if and when they're ready, they're moved into permanent housing. For a lot of our clients, that means moving into one of our apartments, but for others, it may be living in the community in an apartment or a house. It may mean moving back in with family. There's different routes that somebody can take for housing. But we provide what's called permanent supportive housing, where we provide on-site case management in an apartment building. So when you hear mixed income apartments, we are in some of those buildings, and we have more and more apartments opening up across the city. It's kind of crazy, actually. We're growing pretty fast and opening up a lot more apartments. There was kind of a pause during COVID, but there's a lot of construction happening where we partner with Home Leasing LLC, and they're a certified B Corporation. And what they do is they gut apartments that have unethical landlords, basically, take them over, temporarily house all the occupants and make it into a dignified, habitable, pleasant space to live. And then they bring everybody back. And then we have a number of units in that building where we're housing our clients. So they have an on-site case manager that they meet with anywhere from several times a week up to once a month, depending on their level of need. And people can live there, you know, as long as it meets their needs. Eventually they might move out, but again, it's not necessarily mandatory. It kind of depends on a lot of different things. And then what makes us really unique is that regardless of where anybody goes after they've moved out of Jennifer House or Nielsen House, is they're continuing to be a part of the Spirit of Christi prison outreach community. So in a lot of human service agencies, what you'll find is that somebody comes in, they get what they need, quote unquote, and then they walk out the door and that's it. Nobody has a personal connection. There's no community there. They're, you know, getting, all right, here's your paperwork so you can get your housing and goodbye. So what's unique about us is we're still there because addiction is a lifelong battle. Being incarcerated, being all of these things can cause instability on and off sometimes for some clients. So if somebody's struggling in their apartment and they're like, I feel like I want to use, I'm struggling, I'm lonely, whatever, they can call us to talk. They can call us to come over for a meal. They can come over for a group at the house. They can talk to their neighbors. They can talk to their on-site case manager. And sometimes if they're really struggling, they can return to Jennifer or Nielsen House for what we call a respite stay. And basically what that usually looks like is about 30 days or so, again, person-centered, and the person stays with us and their apartment is okay. They're not losing their apartment. That gap in rent is filled. We're making sure their apartment is there for them when they're ready. This continuum is why I say we're kind of a trailblazer, because we have this all-encompassing service that we provide, a community and a family that's really important. The last thing I'll say before questions too is right now, I want to say it's about 98%, maybe 99% of direct care staff. So that's people who are working per diem, and that's leadership in the houses, are alumni of the programs. This is huge, super unique. And I think it's why the programs are so successful, because you have lived experience experts providing care, and that creates a very unique environment. I think it's really good for trauma-informed care because the clients are more quick to trust people who they really know they can relate to. So
Great.
that's my spiel.
Elizabeth, thank you so much.
Of course.
Thank you so much. I'm going to just propose that we answer 2 questions, but I want to have time to hear from the other speakers. So
yeah, I think
we'll
that's a
get
good
more
idea.
questions at the end. But one question is, what are the most common reasons for incarceration, and what is the average length of time spent in prison?
I don't know the answer to either of those questions.
Okay, so maybe one of the other speakers will.
Yes, I think Lisa probably does.
Okay.
That's why.
All right, well, we'll get to those.
that
How
would
does a
be-
healthcare provider refer patients to your care or services?
Mhm. So how people are referred to us, Lisa can definitely talk more about this, but this is kind of plays into how the reentry system is so odd. So as far as our funding goes, we get government funding through housing. So we have HUD, which is Housing and Urban Development, and then we have state grants that are all under housing and homelessness. So we function as a homeless shelter as far as our funding goes. So when it comes to referrals, we're kind of an odd duck because usually for a shelter, if somebody's getting referred to a shelter, it's because they're homeless and that's that. We require somebody to be homeless and justice involved. So with referrals, you call the house basically and say, I have this person in front of me, do they fit the needs? But again, Lisa will talk more about that, but it's a really interesting system because you would think that there would be maybe, government funding for reentry specifically, but we actually function as a shelter. So referrals usually for shelters go through DHS. So if somebody is homeless, they go to DHS and they're kind of dispersed that way. But our referrals, if we know that we have a client coming, we can hold a bed for however many weeks because we know that they're going to be coming, as opposed to a regular shelter. It's just, do you have an open bed tonight or not? So I might not be, that's definitely not the full picture, but it kind of paints slides, kind of an odd
Okay,
thing as far as referrals go.
great. All right, so if it's all right, we want to be sure to hear from Lisa and Stephanie, and then we have more questions at the end that could go to any of you, I assume. So thank you so much, Elizabeth. This was great. And now let's hear from Lisa.
We're good. Hi there. Everyone can hear us, I'm hoping. My name is Lisa Buscemi. I am the director of Jennifer House. Very proud to say that. Worked very hard to get where I'm at. I'm just gonna, first off, let me thank the Women's Giving Circle, because if it wasn't for you, I wouldn't be where I am today. I mean, I put the work in, but you guys believing in our program helped me along my process and my walk at Jennifer House. So I just want to thank you from the bottom of my heart. I can just tap in a little bit on my story and where I came from, and then talk about the Women's Empowerment Program. So I was, like my little bio, I was addicted to heroin for many years. I ended up in the New York State prison sentence, hopeless, family wouldn't talk to me. I had no friends. I just was lost. When I got sentenced, I knew, I just knew I had a chance at life again. I got sentenced to 1 to 3 years in state prison because of my drug addiction, which led me to being a thief. I was going in and out of stores like I had a license to do so, but it was to feed my addiction. I got sentenced to state prison, like I said, 1 to 3 years. And it's the best thing that ever happened to me. I thanked the judge for sentencing me and giving me a chance at my life again. I spent a year in prison. And while I was in prison, I reached out through my prison liaison who works on each unit and told her about Jennifer House, asked if she could reach out, send a referral. I wanted to go there, which I was already here 2 other times, because Jennifer House is not a chance of 1 time, 2 times. We give women many chances. So I was here 3 times. So I came and I worked and I worked and I worked and I was determined. The staff believed in me, and just helped me along my way. And when I came in, I was still broken. My family wouldn't talk to me. My kids, my brother, my grandson, I couldn't see for many years because of my addiction. And it was the same old story. Oh, I'm doing this, I'm doing that. I've changed. This time I didn't say nothing and I just did it. I was on fire and I just didn't stop till I got to where I'm at today. I was at Jennifer House and I moved out of Jennifer House, and I also moved into our apartment program. I spent almost 9 months at Jennifer House, just still taking care of Lisa and building myself up, the staff loving on me, empowering me to become the woman I am today and believing in me. And when I moved out into our apartment program, found out about the WEP, our Women's Empowerment Program. And it was just such a great program. They helped me, but now I'm helping the women with the Women Empowerment Program. But, if we need groceries, we can come back and get food. It's very hard when you're going on your own. You don't realize how expensive stuff is. And a big trigger for women is not having enough food, not having enough hygiene, not knowing how you're going to get to a support meeting or an outpatient group. for me on parole, not how I'm gonna go see my parole officer. So the Women's Empowerment Program supplied us with food if we needed it, hygiene products, bus passes. They basically had anything we needed. If there was something that they didn't have, they got it for us. You know, and that was a huge help in the recovery process and you know, where I am today. So I went through our, you know, our permanent supportive housing program where I had my case manager. I was still coming back to Jennifer House. They ended up hiring me. I became a per diem staff January 8th of 2018. And I was able to serve the women the way I was served when I was here. You know, we come in as women coming home from prisons and inpatients broken. We slither underneath the door. We have no love. We've been disrespected, talked down to, degraded. Some of us physically abused, sexually abused, emotionally abused. And Jennifer House loved me till I could learn to love myself. And I was so grateful to be able to get in this position and just be able to give back what was so freely given to me by Jennifer House. So I started off and I was the per diem staff and then became a case manager and the medication liaison, and there was nothing I wouldn't do. If I had to do overnights volunteering for free, I did it because I am in love with Jennifer House. This is my home still. Jennifer House is my safe place. It's my home. So I just worked very diligently and very hard. I had a great connection with the women. I still do today. I believe because we're person-centered, we meet our clients where we're at, where the women where they're at. And I treat them like women. They're not clients. They're me. That's me. I'm talking to me 5 years ago, almost 6 years ago. I'll have 6 years clean May 4th this year. And I think they can really relate also. Thank you. I'm proud of myself for that too. It was a long, hard road. But I think me being in the position I'm in now, you know, I ended up becoming house manager, which was huge. I never thought I was going to get it. I didn't have the degree, but I had the lived experience and I knew I deserved it. I knew I could relate to the women could relate to me, and I knew I was a hope shot for those women. I know for me, and this is for me, I go to outpatient and my counselors would be book learned. You know, they didn't know anything I was going through. They learned it from a book, and you really don't understand until you walk the life and live the lifestyle. It's just, I don't know how, like I'm going back to school to learn more, and that's more of the college level. So I can be the best I can be for our women. But in reality, my lived experience is what really connects me with the women. You know, I've been through prison 2 times. I've been homeless. You know, I've never been in the human trafficking or prostitution part, but I was a thief. You know, nobody liked me. No one wanted to be around me. I was lonely. I was hopeless. So I can really relate to the women when they come through the door. So I got offered the house manager position, and I literally had to pull over on the side of the road because I was crying so hard of happiness and gratefulness, and thanked God, because I believe between the God and this house, that's what helped me on my path to where I am today. So I was a house manager for almost 2 years, and I stepped in and became interim director as well as house manager. So I was juggling both jobs. Thought I was in over my head, but the determination I have, I just succeeded and just kept going forward. And you know, it was like fighting the rapids that are, you know, when you go through something, you're trying to fight the current. That's what I was doing. I was offered an interview for the director job. And I had my interview and they offered me the position. And I just am so grateful. You know, the women that we serve, I have such a connection with, even when they move out. I still have a connection with them. They call me, they check in, they send me baby pictures, diplomas. Look, I graduated from drug court. We have such a high rate of our alumnas that are successful. And I believe it's from our women empowerment program, B, meeting our women where they're at, C, just unconditional love. Unconditional love. By the grace of God, there go I. And I tell them I'm one wrong decision of being where they're sitting. I give the woman a hope shot. This can be you in 5, 6 years. I've been home from prison 5 years, May 3rd. And I just bought my a home in Greece in my own name, got approved. Like I couldn't even have his credit score when I came home, and I cleaned up my credit and I bought a vehicle. My family believes in me. I had my father one day, I was leaving his house, and I'm my only daughter. I'm his daddy's little girl, little Italian family. And I was getting in my car and he said, "Hey, Lisa." And I said, "Yeah, Papa." I call him Papa Bear. And I turned around. He's like, "I am so proud of you." I just broke down crying because I don't remember the last time, if ever, I heard those words from my father. And he's like, "Did I say something wrong?" I'm like, "No, you said everything right." You know, so I just, this program and the Women's Giving Circle, what you have done and believed in our program and helped us the way you have, is what made me who I am today. What's helped me become who I am today, as well as all the women that we serve. As Elizabeth was stating, our staff, 98%, 99% have been through this process in this house. So it shows our women that this program works, that Jennifer House works. If you follow every step let me say every suggestion that we offer, because we can only give suggestions. We can't force a woman to do anything. We give suggestions. Sometimes I give strong suggestions, and it's up to them to take it or leave it. All I can do is love on them and suggest, "Hey, let's look at it this way." But it's, you believing in our programs and building us up and allowing us to have as much as you fund us. If it wasn't for you, we wouldn't be where we're at today. And our women wouldn't be, successful. We have a lot of women, which I'll let Stephanie talk about, that have moved on for college and jobs, are successful. That a lot of people think, "Oh, she's an addict. She's a felon. She's never going to turn her life around." And I'm here to say that's a lie. All those old sayings are lies. We're women. We're not who we were. We are what we are. We are who we are today. I tell my women now, they'll beat themselves up. "Oh, I was this and I was that." Okay, so was I. That's not who we were or who we are. That's who we were. That's why the rearview mirror is so small. They don't want you to focus on that little rearview mirror. It's the big windshield. You need to look forward.
Lisa, I just want to thank you so much. You put such a human face on what we are funding in our own teeny little way. And you're so articulate and passionate. And I just can't thank you enough. And I feel sorry for Stephanie, who has to speak after you.
And I was all nervous.
So Stephanie, why don't you speak? And then we do have some questions for any of you, I'm sure. So Stephanie.
Sure. So that is a hard act to follow. I did not go through this house, so I don't have an incredible story like Lisa does. But I will say that one of my favorite things to tell people is that I was hired March 10th, 2020. So 3 days before we had a global pandemic. And I love to tell people my job is to help people find jobs during a pandemic when everything shut down. And I love to see people's eyes be like, "What do you do?" So COVID was a big challenge. So when I first started, because of COVID and everything being locked down, it actually presented an opportunity to just find my way, because this is a pilot program. So nobody was like, "This is what you should do." They basically were just like, "Here you go, and here's the women, and we believe in you." And so I'm grateful for this opportunity. My program is really based off of relationship building. It's a huge part of my program being successful. And I wanted to tell one story in particular, because I don't want to go on too long, but this one client really will show the highs and the lows of our program. So this one client came to our house after being released from prison. She struggled with alcoholism, and she came to our house in April of 2020. And so when they come to the house, it's an opportunity for me to build a relationship with the women. You know, just being here, we'll play cards, we'll just get to know each other. And while I'm building a relationship, I'm assessing employment readiness. And that looks like, how are the women kind of managing their life while they're out? How are they helping through the house? Are they willing to kind of go the extra mile to help the needs around the house? That's how I kind of assess how people are kind of employment ready. And once they've become stabilized through Lisa's program and they're ready to kind of move forward, they move into my program. And so now I've built a relationship with them. And that's so important because, as Lisa was stating and Elizabeth, these women have gone through so much and people have really been mistreating them. So if you don't have that established relationship with them, it's hard to make progress. I mean, you know, if you don't know who they are and they don't know that they can trust you, you're not going to get very far with them. So this one client, you know, she comes in, we talk about schooling, she talks about her interests, and we look at it, but she decides, no, I just want to get a job. So we start and we do a resume. And she goes, this is the best I've ever looked on paper. And it's funny because, you know, when women are arrested, they call them their papers and their rap sheets. So she's like, I've never looked this good on paper. And so then we get her a job. We find her a job and she starts working at Tim Hortons. She's making, you know, $13, $14 an hour, but she's just grateful to have the job. And she actually moved up into management of the job because she's such a hard worker. But then as she was working there, you know, Tim Hortons or kind of jobs in food services aren't always the safest place to work because there's a ton of drugs, you know, that are coming in through these jobs. So not all employment is good employment. And so we had to really talk about that. Like, how is this affecting your recovery? And is this the right job for you? So she really, after a while of working there and you know, feeling triggered by just the area that she was in and low paying job, she decided, you know, this isn't for me. So she left because when someone is addicted, their recovery has to come first, because without their recovery, there is no employment. There is nothing else. So, and that was a hard decision for her because when I asked her, why is it important for you to have a job? She said, I just want to feel like a normal person. I want to feel like I'm a person like anybody else in society. I want to just contribute. I want to be able to buy myself some clothes. So then we got her another job. And well, let me back up. So we kept applying for higher paying jobs. And she kept getting denied. And this is the low part of, you know, kind of my program is people really just aren't out there willing to hire felons and high paying jobs. And so, you know, this is why people tend to kind of go back into a reoccurring system because they're not really able to move forward with their lives. And so we were able to get her another job at Donuts Delight, but she was working overnights. And again, it wasn't the right situation for her. So then she quit. And so now she's applying for jobs again, and she's starting to feel discouraged. And so this is kind of where the continuing of my program, it's not just helping people find a resume and a job, it's that continued case management of keeping them motivated, keeping them encouraged, empowering them that, you know, the right job will come along. And so I have to say a huge shout out to Nancy, who I meet with, you know, when I get on these Zoom meetings with the Women's Giving Circle, I'm just so grateful because you guys have been so supportive of me. And Nancy had said, you know, is there anything that we can do? And I just said, if you know people, educate them. If you know employers that are willing to hire and work with us, that is really what we need. And so back to this client, she had applied to a position through the University of Rochester, and she got an interview. It sounded very promising, but then her background check came, and then there was a standstill, and then she was starting to feel discouraged again. So around the same time, I got an email from Nancy saying, hey, I have this connection. I got off of this meeting with somebody through U of R, and you should reach out to them. So I did. And so I reached out to this coordinator through the University of Rochester, and I brought up that our client, was kind of stuck. Well, within the day, they called her and they said, we want you to come start. And so her first day was yesterday, and she's making $18 an hour. And she's just so incredibly happy, and she wanted me to tell you guys thank you, because that couldn't have happened without you guys reaching out and us finding connections. I mean, that's really kind of the biggest thing. The piece that's kind of missing the most is having employer connections. But we're just so grateful, and I just wanted to share that story because it kind of shows really an overall about the vocational CAES program from beginning to end, and the highs and the lows. So thank you so much for having me on here. And I'm so grateful. I love serving our women, and I couldn't have done it without you guys.
Thank you, Stephanie. I assume you were referring to Nancy Rutherford, who was
I am, yes.
with the Hagen Grant. Okay.
Yes.
We have a few questions for any of you, I assume. How many women can Jennifer House accommodate at one time? And could Spiritus Christi support another house with additional funding?
We've been fighting for another woman's house for about 12 years. No, not that long, but we definitely, I think there's just not enough housing for women. I've always said, let's get a bigger house, let's get another house, but you can't do it without funding. It's a lot of upkeep, it's a lot of red tape to go along. But yeah, I would love a bigger house or another house to serve as many women as we can.
Well, how many women can you serve now?
Right now, we can serve 11 women. We do have a pull-out couch, blow-up mattresses, because if we have to put someone on a blow-up mattress to save their life, we're going to do that. But we do have beds for 11 women. But who are we to turn someone down that we could save their life that night? I'm not willing to take that chance.
I can
And
touch.
then go ahead.
I was going to add on to the question about if we could, support another house. The demand is there. The demand is there. The whole system, the demand is there, and we are growing. We are growing at a very manageable pace. We just bought we bought a house for the men that can accommodate 20 men. So that's 8 more than it was before. And we're adjusting to this new property that we have. And we are growing as far as our apartment programs go. So do I see this agency supporting something like that? Yes. Today? No. But yes, in the long term, I think that's where we're headed, whether it's the prison outreach or other agencies or the whole system, I think seems to be changing, which I think is why we have so many apartments right now, is because the conversation around human needs and meeting just humanity and how we view one another is changing, which is why I think our apartment program is growing so fast, because there's a lot more people living in the apartment. So it's kind of like they come through the house and then they're spreading out throughout the city. So having those apartments is a huge part of the success of those we serve. So, but yes, the demand is there. It's absolutely there.
Well, so related to that, does Spiritus Christi pay the rent for the apartments, and how many apartments are you talking about?
Elizabeth, you can answer that.
It's person-centered, so everybody's story is a little bit different, but more often than not, it is subsidized in some way, somebody's rent. The number of apartments, I always struggle with this question because it feels like it's different every day. We, over the next few years, are going to have about 6 buildings with apartments in them, I want to say, and it can range anywhere from like 6 units to about 20 units right now. So it varies. It varies a lot. I'm not in numbers as much as it's funny because I'm a grant writer, but I always have to go to my supervisor, who's the business manager, and I'm like, all right, how many apartments do we have? Thank you. And then I go keep working on whatever I'm working on. How many will we have next year? Thank you.
All right,
So,
then another
every year she
question.
could answer.
Another question. I assume demand is greater than your ability to serve. So how do you determine who receives your services? And do you go through some sort of a screening process?
We do. It really depends if our demand is greater than what our ability to serve. It depends on the weather, to be honest with you. If it's warm out, people aren't really clawing their way to get into a transitional or a shelter. They're warm outside. We tend to find we are high in demand in the fall, the holidays, the winter. And how do we determine who receives your services? That's just so hard to answer. We do have a sort of screening process. We get referrals from someone, kind of killed 2 birds with 1 stone because someone asked about referral service. We do get referrals from Department of Corrections. We get referrals from drug court. We get referrals from inpatients. And what we do, we have a referral packet that we send over once they reach out to us. We send it over to them. They go over with the clients. See if Jennifer House seems like a fit for them. We get the paperwork back. We look over. We do, take their mental health, chemical dependency, if they have any legal issues, and then we set up a phone screen with them. They call in and we have like a little questionnaire, just kind of get to know you, find out about their history, their criminal history, their, abuse history, domestic violence survivor. We also have worked with Willow, domestic violence. Women come to us. We do a phone, like I said, a phone screen, a phone process. We determine their needs and if they have a safe, stable place, and if we have a bed available. Someone coming home from prison has an out date. The prison will not keep them past that out date. So 100%, they will get a bed first. Drug courts, they can hold people in jail a little bit longer till we have a bed. Outpatients, or inpatients, not so much. The health system, the insurances, they don't want to pay. They would rather throw them back on the streets without having safe, stable housing and deal with them coming back in a month or 2 for more treatment. So there really is a process, and it's hard to say who could get in. I mean, prison, there's no ifs, ands, or buts. They have an out date, they get a bed. That's just how that is. But it's really hard to determine who we says can come and who we say cannot come. If I could take them all in, I would. We do not, that's one thing we do not take is sex offenders to children, because we do have children here that would ruin our family reunification programs, and we don't take arson offenders as well. But we've had women from sex trafficking, been sex trafficked to come in, domestic violence, huge. So it is a process screening, but it's also, like I said, I hate that we do have to determine who can and who can't, because we only have so many beds.
And to
Great.
add on
Thank you.
that, to add on to that, it's not the right place for everybody, and that's
Mhm.
okay. It's not the
Mhm.
right place for everybody, and that's okay.
Mhm.
Somebody, and we might not know that until they've been with us for a few weeks, that it's not the right place. But we're not just saying like, get out. I mean, we're referring, we have a process for making sure that they're taken care of. And we just like to share that because it's not like everybody who comes through the door that it's the right place for them. You can't always quantify something like
Mm-mm.
that. So as many screenings as we do, you just never know. So if somebody, it's not the right fit, then we do figure out other options for them. And it doesn't feel good. It sucks. But what we can do is for the time that they're with us is show that unconditional support and help them through that transition elsewhere and say, this place is going to fit your needs better and you're not getting what you need here, based on just the type of program that we are. So.
And you know, we do, when the women either complete or we do have to find them a different level of care, we have a survey we ask them to fill out. Of course, we don't demand it. We ask them. This is so we know how to serve them better, what we can do to improve their, you know, the next woman's stay at Jennifer House, or what we're lacking, what they loved. You know, so it's a good little insight. It's their own words, you know, they're leaving, so they don't care what they write, if they hurt her feelings or not. And really the majority of the time, it's all empowering to us as well as staff that these surveys are done.
So this seems like the perfect last comment. This is from Jane Bleeg, and she says, Mike and I have been following and supporting prison outreach for more than 20 years. They have been unbelievably smart about how they've grown and how they've evolved and what they offer to meet changing needs. Can't think of a better investment. So that's a great endorsement. But I just want to thank each of you, Lisa and Elizabeth and Stephanie, because there are about 170 of us, but we're not all on the grant making committee. So we don't all have, you know, a great in-depth knowledge of every grantee. So this was so helpful for us. And we really feel your passion, and we're pleased to support such a great organization. So thank you so much.
One more
Thank
thing.
you.
Yeah, thank you.
If I could add just one thing, there's a wonderful website called the Prison Policy Initiative. It's a nonprofit, nonpartisan, basically think tank, information gathering, research place. If you have questions about anything data related, women's issues, reentry issues, anything related to anything we've said, I guarantee you it's on this website. I use it almost daily. It's a wonderful place. With, you know, academic research, lived experience information. It's just a really great place. So if you have more questions, reach out to us or use this website, both. Part of what we do is we want to change the narrative around the people that we are serving, and information is, you know, great way to do that. Hit them with the data.
Great. Thanks so much, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank
Take
you.
care.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.